Companions, welcome. I thought today I'll tell you a story. It's a story that is included in the book that I recently published about As Far as a Man Can Go. And it happened in the eastern central part of Mozambique once when I was wandering around there. I wasn't going anywhere in particular, just being in the bush, but I was heading roughly northeastwards towards the Zambezi Delta, which lay to my northeast. And this was a completely untouched stretch of wilderness at the time. I had with me a guy called Kamisu, who was from the area, and he was kind of my tracker guide. And then there were two other people that carried our supplies and the few pieces of camping equipment we took along. And we were walking along a little path. It was a path made by animals and used by game and people alike. There are many paths like that all over Africa. And I prefer using them because it makes the walking more comfortable and less tiring, and one actually makes better progress than one would if one tried to walk through the bush and had to cross obstacles and break through thickets and so on. I was about 2 or 3 days away from the vehicle which I'd left in the bush when we came across a small group of people, 5 or so I think it was. They were heading in the opposite direction. Now this area was very sparsely inhabited. Maybe every 50-60 kilometers you would find a small group of semi-nomads who lived off the bush and moved their few belongings to a new place once the area where they were got depleted. And this was such a little group. They were carrying lots of stuff that they'd harvested from the bush. They were on their way to go and barter it at some village somewhere to the southwest. Now, of course, because it's so rare to find people in such a remote bush, there was a lot of greeting and exchanging of news and so on. Such people are always a very good source of information and latest bush news. And one thing they told us was that only a few days earlier, a man had been caught by a lion and eaten, quite close to where we were. Now, I didn't think much of it as Kamisu translated to me, because there are lions in the bush and you often become aware of them. You see them sometimes if you're lucky, often you hear them, become aware of them otherwise through their signs and so on. And they from time to time take humans too, the odd traveler, the unwary poacher, and so on. Now, it was late in the afternoon, and not far from where we met the group, we came to a little stream. It was just a small trickle of water, but it was water and it was clean and fresh. And now at this little seep, we found the spoor of a big male lion. He had stooped at the water to drink, and his front feet were splayed open, and they were larger than a large saucer. He was a big male. We could also see where his mane had brushed the soft mud as he had lowered his head. He had drunk his fill, and then he crossed the little stream and he lay down in the soft sand on the other side. And I could see that he was very relaxed, as if he wanted to say, "I don't fear anything here." But I think he heard us approaching, and he jumped up and he moved away. But he was very close because his sign was fresh. The sand that he had thrown out forward from his tracks was still damp, and the little cracks that form on the edges of the spoor was still perfectly formed, not crumbled away. So he was very close. If our senses were good enough, we would have been able to smell him. or possibly heard the faint rustle as he lowered himself flatter onto the ground to hide from us and see when he can get a chance. Now, he could have been a single male, dominant male, patrolling the outer reaches of his territory, or he could have been a nomad who was unattached and wandering around, or he could have been an old male lion that had been pushed out and now he was hurt and sour and weak and hungry and looking for some easy prey like humans, or he had to scavenge. So it was very dangerous. Lions are dangerous at night. The same lion that will run away from you during the day becomes predatory and aggressive at night. And if it's a lion that had been spoilt with human flesh, an easy kill, that is extremely dangerous. And of course, my bush companions, having lived in the bush their lives, saw all of these things too. And they were very worried. I was also a bit uncomfortable, but I just couldn't afford to show it. I had to present a brave front. I said to Kamisu, listen, Kamisu, we must make our camp here because we can't take enough water with us to be able to cook and wash and have enough left for the next day's walk. No, he said, we can't make a camp here. It is too dangerous with the lion. That lion is a very dangerous lion. I said, Kamisu, yes, I know, but so what do we want to do? He says, no, those other people, they are walking very fast to get out of the area. And we must too, because the lion is very dangerous. I said, Kamisu, look, the sun is already touching the horizon. We can walk fast, but we won't get very far before it is dark. And we can't walk in the dark, especially not with a lion like that in the area. So, we really don't have a choice. And besides, I have my rifle with me. I had a 375 with me, and I will chase the lion away with the rifle. You've got to stop acting like a little boy here, like an umfaan that's come to the bush for the first time. You have got to set the example. I think that calmed him a bit, because he didn't like me insinuating that he was less than a brave warrior. But I could see that the other two, the two bearers, they were very scared. And they wanted to walk. And I could see that we were close to rebellion. They would just leave. I had to act quite decisively. And so I said, look, we're not going to walk. We're going to stay here. We are going to make 3 fires. And I showed them where, here, here, and here. We're going to make a fire. And we're going to sleep between the 3 fires. And if the lion comes, which I don't think it will come, but if it comes, I will chase it away with my gun. And I presented my gun like I was presenting arms to the chief of the army. And I've got a flashlight, and I took out the flashlight and showed them. It was an LED, quite powerful beam. And Kamisu will put the light on the lion, and then I will chase it away. This helped a bit. They were still scared, but we all started gathering wood and getting ready for the night. We eventually had a very restful night there. Never heard of the lion or saw any sign of him. The next day, we found his tracks about an hour or so away from our camp when he had walked along the pathway. So he was definitely on the prowl. Companions, later that evening, when I sat with my glass of wine, I thought I should actually add this thought. I was as uncertain and maybe even a bit scared as my African companions, my bush companions. But I swung the situation with attitude. But the thing is, the lion hasn't ever read the attitude script. Attitude, as we understand it in the modern world, really means nothing here in the bush. And I have seen too many people that thought they could get away with attitude get really seriously unstuck and even die. So I wrote in my diary, be careful. Companions, I hope you enjoyed that, and that you will join me again at my next post. Good luck to you in the meantime.